Alright everyone, it's time for another video sort of reiterating, it's variance on a theme, but it's perhaps something that needs to be talked about, which is that you shouldn't bother debating leftists because they've already debated themselves and they've lost. Specifically, they've devolved at this point, I think, and I'm talking mainly about like the online, like the influencer leftist non-community. They've all like split themselves into a bunch of middle school cliques, and really it's like looking at a lunchroom in a middle school where you've got like one group of kids here, the other group of kids, you got like 5 or 6 tables, and you've got all of these different groups, and even if they don't necessarily dislike each other or something, they've sort of semi-segregated along, like here's the jocks and there's the nerds and there's the popular kids and the cheerleaders or something. It's basically the same, and it's really funny because in some cases they pick at each other, and they attempt to do the same stupid shit. Like I've talked about before, I've used the analogy, sometimes like when they're trying to grift off someone, usually someone with a considerably larger audience, they'll like be like, oh, debate me or you're a coward. It's basically like, hey, lick this cold flagpole. It's the sort of stuff you'd get from like a 12-year-old, which is probably the mentality of the average leftist. Link in the description, by the way, as well as a pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube, to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I put 2 of my videos every day only on other sites, and now that Odyssey and Rumble and BitChute are sort of branching out into streaming, I may not even be doing my streams on YouTube anymore. I'm going to see how that works, because I want something simple. I want it to be basically like Google Hangouts was before they destroyed it, like until 2019. When they decided to make it boomer-proof by making you do a bunch of encoding bullshit that I can't figure out. Basically, that's what I want. I just want to click record, put the tags and shit in, and go. We'll see what happens with live streaming. Anyway, this is partially spurred on by that Caleb dude that we were clanking on the other day. Like a few days ago, there was this, commie on, I think self-professed communist actually, on Twitter, attempting to try to debate me. Now, let me explain something first. This all boils down to, I'm not going to deal with bullshit from people who are acting in bad faith. If a person shows up and starts insulting me and strutting around self-aggrandizing, I'm not going to give them the justification of a debate, because I already know it's not going to be a debate. It's going to be them shouting over me, or at least trying to, and shifting goalposts and using a million different fallacies and talking in circles and then claiming victory afterwards to their echo chamber because the whole point is a grift. That's all it is. When I do take up debates, it's because I know the individual actually, number 1, believes in what they're ideologically saying, and number 2, hasn't acted like a jackass in challenging me to one. Like, for instance, Fuentes, years ago. I debated him on religion. But he was acting in good faith. It's not like, he wasn't saying, hey, this Styx Hexenhammer is a dirty heathen, and he's going to hell, and I want to put his miserable pagan ass in his place. No, he said, hey, I think you're wrong, basically. I can't remember some aspect of religiosity. We should debate this point, and people thought it was a good idea. Well, there's a big difference between that and the grift left. The left, though, has split itself up into so many bizarre little cliques. Like the conjugations that they have to use to describe themselves are funny. I've given them my own labels. For instance, you have the Starbucks Marxists, and this that's not really an online clique so much, it's more of a real world thing. That's like the Extinction Rebellion kids, or Greta Thunberg or something. You have people who have left-wing ideologies, but their lifestyle is incommensurate, especially with any environmental, climate change-based, workers' rights side of leftism. Their life is incommensurate with that. They're from the upper middle class. They're NIMBYists usually, which means they want a new nuclear plant, but not in their neighborhood. They want a new addiction rehab facility, but not next door to them. A lot of them are college kids. They tend to be on the younger side, and they have a Che Guevara shirt made in China. they have a Starbucks fair trade latte with a plastic non-biodegradable cup that was processed sugar from Sri Lanka or something, and their globalized, materialistic, consumeristic lifestyle is simply incommensurate with their stated ideology. So that's one group. Then you have the Breadliners, and the Breadliners are basically the shit-mouthed left, you could call them. Basically, imagine a communist that doesn't want to engage in identity politics, but actually does because that has become the identity that they're espousing. It's basically a refutation of just the social justice warrior left. And the reason why, I think, is mainly because there was a niche that was unexploited until recently in the left, by and large, which is for people that are on the left but are bigots, essentially. That's basically what it boils down to. Then you have, like, the suit-wearing left, like Caleb, or like that, what's his name there? Jason or something, or Justin Unruhi? I don't know. He's the dude, the large dude with a mohawk, a suit, and an iPad that rambles endlessly about how great China is. And so you got the suit left. They're like, kind of like maybe vaguely more sophisticated looking versions of tankies, I suppose. And then you get the grift left, and the grift left is loosely overlapped with breadliners sometimes. And that's just basically, they're not really on the left. They just espouse those views in order to get money or to get attention or something. You've had this on the right, by the way, too. This is not unique to leftists. It's just, it tends to be more of a problem now. You had a lot of people show up years ago when right-wing, loosely, I'm using that term, commentary online became a thing. Like, my channel was skyrocketing. I'm a libertarian. Well, that's considered to be right-leaning, generally speaking. In the economic sense, I would agree. Not necessarily in the moral sense according to U.S. traditionalism or conservatism. I'm not a conservative. And then, like, the religious conservatives, the alt-right, the alt-light, stuff like that, we're all surging ahead. And what you had is every 10th or so person ended up rage quitting after basically trying to grift, and many of them failed. And I can point out there are mainline conservative voices that are grifters too. There's a grift right. It absolutely exists. They tend to be on the older side on the right. The new right tends not to engage in that so much. But for every warning about don't punch right, no infighting and stuff, the online right already had that problem. The online left is currently having it, and there's really no reason to engage them in meaningful debate because you're not going to get a meaningful debate. If somebody is sitting there saying, well, the nation of China doesn't engage in imperialism, they're just fine. North Korea sounds like a worker's paradise. We should be more like them. Do you really honestly anticipate having a serious discussion of socio-political issues with them? Just because a person challenges you to a debate or insinuates that you should talk to them about political issues does not mean you have to justify them with the time of day. There are ideologies, and I support their right to free speech, but there are ideological positions that are so incommensurate with the reality that only an idiot would take them seriously. And so since they are clearly being a court jester, and half the time they are clearly doing it just to get attention because they know they can get some super chat money or something, there's no reason to platform them. There's no reason. I've warned about this. Razor Fist as well has warned about this. This is why I no longer consider myself part of any particular ideological community beyond content creators, specifically geared towards free speech. Well, you can be a leftist and believe in that. You can be on the right. You can be like me and not really fit in that dichotomy and just be generally a generic libertarian. I think that's the most common. The idea is that everyone should be able to have discussions, but that doesn't mean that you on your platform have some requirement that there's something wrong with saying to a person, look, I'm not going to bother talking to you because you're being an idiot. You're being a fucking moron, and there's literally no reason to talk to you. I'm not getting anything out of it. I mean, essentially, it's a labor of love thing. If you're debating someone with a considerably smaller audience anyway, you're not getting anything out of it. There's no point to it. There's no winning. The idea of online debates even having a winner or loser at this point, because of the ideological echo chambers that big tech in part has created, there's no winner or loser. It's impossible. 90% of the people watching a so-called debate go in knowing who they're going to vote for the winner of the debate on the non-scientific Twitter poll before a single word is even said. It's basically a knockoff blood sports that takes place largely on places like Twitter and Reddit and stuff, where the fan bases of different ideological groups or different actual figures, different influencers or creators, basically just endlessly spar. That's why when this Caleb dude decided to antagonize me, all I did is raid his chat with hundreds of clankers. There's no debate to be had. And basically that's what the ideological debate on Twitter boils down to anyway. People insulting each other and disrupting each other. There's no other point to it. It's political hogwash. And by the way, it's also catharsis. It basically is a waste of time. You're not actually accomplishing anything. This is why I no longer actively use Twitter in the sense of making my own posts. It's not going to change anybody's mind. It's not like Twitter, by the way, at this point is allowing, people like me to speak openly anyway, except to a very small echo chamber of people that get notified. Hell, YouTube's done the same thing. Another reason I'm looking into streaming on other sites. If nobody's even aware the stream exists, other than the people you've already connected with, what's a fucking point? So yeah, you shouldn't bother debating leftists. They're constantly antagonizing one another. One left. By the way, ask like 10 communists, self-professed, what communism actually entails, and you'll get 10 totally different answers. Most of them will be either incredulous, which is they can't really describe it because once they've described specifically what it is, they know you'll be able to say, oh, well, that sucks and here's 3 reasons why. They rather keep it amorphous. Or you'll get deliberately meandering, obtuse strawmen of communism, and you'll never actually get a puristic answer. You know, they'll hold up their ideal on a pedestal. They don't even appear to know or at least be willing to admit what it actually entails. Mainly because every commie regime is collapsed, so ask them to name a truly communistic regime, and then pick them apart. Half the time they won't even be able to name one. That's about all. Peace out.